Let me tell you about the run and shoot offense and how it'll bring life back into your deep passing game. It's an offense that's predicated on motions and wide receiver option routes to make the offense right on every single snap. It fell out of favor in the late 90s, but in its time, it caused a lot of havoc for defenses. It emulates the natural way we play football, where receivers find the open area of the field and the quarterback just finds them. A simple but extremely effective set of rules are added to make the approach much more systematic for real football. In this video, we're going to blend the concepts of the run and shoot given to us in this game with some adjustments that make it effective within the meta of Madden 18. Think of this as a Madden run and shoot starter pack rather than an homage to this once great offensive philosophy. We'll go over a few very nice deep shots that will be the fundamental base for your shiny new offense, and I'll even throw in some underneath concepts as well. From there, you can take it as, you can make it as extensive as you're willing to practice for. SmartFootball.com did a great breakdown on the run and shoot back in 2009 where they outlined its 5 key tenets. Number 1 is that although it is a spread offense at its core, it requires a full commitment to the passing game. For you to be really good at running this offense, or any offense in general, you need to spend the time in practice to not only be able to read the coverages effectively, but to understand the subtle differences in alignment and adjustments, and to be able to throw the ball in the right spot every single time. The concepts that I'm going to show you require to make some, simple pre and post snap reads, but you'll also need to develop the right touch and timing for a lot of these throws. My philosophy with this playbook is somewhat more akin to the air raid offense, to attack every corner of the field with vertical and horizontal passing. Then, when we make room for ourselves, we open up the running game to keep the defense out of whack for the entire game. Number 2 is a commitment to 4 wide receivers. Speed is the key for the personnel, and simplicity in formation is critical. This playbook literally only has spread, 2x2 twins look, trips left or trips right. No compression, no tight ends on the end of the line of scrimmage, no jumbo, just 4 receivers and a running back spread evenly. Since the motions and reads can be, somewhat complex, keeping the formation simple and relatively consistent will help the quarterback, you, be ultimately effective. Number 3 is that the offense changes on the fly. Depending on what the receivers see in terms of coverage, they will run the most, suitable route for it. I don't think this is so important for us because people don't really bother disguising their defense too much in this game, and you can generally tell what coverage the defense is in with a few simple tells. Or, if they're running cover 3 the entire game, we know it's cover 3. But there are still some interesting ways that we can use options to attack the defense for big gains. Yeah, I wish we could define our own rules for, some of these routes, but, what can you do? That's probably a little overpowered at this stage of Madden. Number 4 is quarterback movement. We know how important a scrambling quarterback is in Madden. If things break down, if we make the wrong predictions, or we see something we don't like, we always want the option to get yards on the ground with the quarterback. Lastly, number 5 is receiver motions. Sure, we don't usually have to check for man coverage in Madden 18, but there are certain keys with different zone coverages that we can uncover when using motion. Secondly, with that, there's certain routes in this game that may not be so good stock, but if we motion them to the other side of the field, then they can become useful for us. So before we go into some of these great deep plays, let's go over the personnel first if you want to run this book. I'll be real, it requires some pretty good players, but we all know you have the coins anyway, right? So we'll start in the trenches. Guards and center focus on high run blocking and high awareness. Reason A is that we need our blocks to hold up when we start to mix in the run. In this playbook, most runs go right through the middle. So your inside zones, your traps, your draws, you don't really see. Actually, I don't think there's a single stretch. So that's something you're going to have to get used to. Reason B why we want the high run blocking is that the interior pass rush isn't so great in Madden 18, so we can sacrifice a bit of pass blocking there. And reason C, believe it or not, awareness actually does matter for offensive line. It's going to help against those inevitable blitzes that we'll face, some of those looping blitzes and so on. The high awareness, we'll be able to pick those up most of the time, if not all the time. Offensive tackles, here's where you want pass block. Preferably you want that secure protector trait to give us, all the time that we can get in the pocket. Wide receivers, we want top end speed. We want our fastest guys in the slot. We want guys like Ted Ginn Jr. or your Tyreek Hill or your, Randy Moss. On the outside, you want still a lot of speed, but you want bigger guys with better catch in traffic. So Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, Harold Carmichael. Quarterback throw power is essential. For a lot of these shot plays, we want to be able to get the ball way down the field, and we want it to get there fast, because we know how quickly these defensive backs break on the ball. Every millisecond counts here, and of course, some speed is nice to boot. At running back, this is really up to your preference. I like the idea of putting fullback Bo Jackson here because not only is he a great runner with 94 speed, a ton of trucking, he also has great pass blocking stats. So in this playbook, if you want to block more than 5, the only person that it's going to be is the running back, because you don't have any sets where there's a tight end, to the side of the tackle, let alone 2 or more. So I like the idea of that. Here, what I'm going to show you when I'm going over these plays, I'll be running my MUT practice roster. It gives me, similar personnel to what I talked about here, and it puts me up against the best defensive players in the game: Sean Taylor, Night Train Lane, etc. You can get it on the PS4 community downloads under the name Deuce Close Lab. Trust me, it'll help your game out a lot. Take it with a small grain of salt, though. I tune the pass rush so that it doesn't come in nearly as ferociously as it would in normal practice mode. But so, some of the long pocket times you might see here might not be possible every time online. So let's get started with the cover 2. Let's quickly... Actually, I won't go over reading safeties. We know that, most of us probably know, but if you don't, a great way to read the defense after the, right after the snap is to just look at the safeties. Sometimes we don't need to. We can see single high, it's going to be cover 3, or, cover 2 invert or something like that. But if we see 2 high safeties, from there, right after the snap, if they kind of spin, so if one of them goes high and one of them goes low, it's cover 3. And you should be able to figure that out in a split second. If they go deep and if they split, it's cover 2. If they go deep and they don't split, they stay kind of towards the middle of the field, it's cover 4. So from there, you might have some sort of different adjustments underneath, but that's the covered shell. So, and another thing I want to go over, actually, I'll bring it in later. So in terms of cover 2, I've always really wanted to be able to expose the area behind the cornerback's cloud. For the last 2 Maddens, that cornerback gets a perfect jam on the wide receiver every damn time, regardless of any ratings. The wide receiver gets pushed in, and by the time he recovers outside to any sort of fade route or anything like that, the safety will be able to cover and make a play on the ball. So that that's exactly what the cover 2 is supposed to do. Because, believe it or not, even for these great athletes, half a field is still a lot of area to cover. So if they want to be able to get to the sideline, that cornerback has to buy him time by disrupting the receiver's route, and also push him inside so that he doesn't have that outside advantage. But what's great about the run and shoot playbook is that it has a lot of vertical routes with a forced outside release. So this route is fundamental to the run and shoot. This allows the receiver to win every time, and now you have the advantage. So the best play for that in this playbook, if we go to the shotgun, and we'll go to either trips or trips halfback weak. So we'll go to halfback weak, and we'll go to just the 4 verts. So if we look at verticals here, the receiver on the right has that kind of, really wide release before it goes vertical. And even though the one on the left looks like it also has an outside release, this one you see in most playbooks. You see that in the strong flood here. You see that in the 60 go here. But those will not get past the cornerback like the route on the right does. So we'll get into that one. And we'll just go to a basic cover 2 to start. Obviously, you're going to want to run this to the wide side of the field. Okay, what I wanted to note before is that I know for sure in 4-3, I don't know about 3-4, you'll have to check. And I know also in nickel is that this field safety in cover 2, he's going to be aligned at least this far. If it's cover 4, which is also, too high, he's going to be something like this. So if you see him inside the hash mark, I would say, there's a 90% chance that it's cover 4. If he's even just a bit outside or even out here, there's a good chance it's cover 2. So it's something you might want to look into, see which formations it works for, which ones doesn't, and even in base align. So whether they base align or not, those safeties are going to be either wider for cover 2 or more narrow for cover 4. And what's good is you can use that hash mark as a nice guide. So we'll put them back. So this is cover 2, and we'll show you how you can use this forced outside release for a one-play touchdown. Okay, so just like that. And we'll look at the replay here. So the reason why this is possible is because, again, that cornerback is not doing his job. He can't disrupt that release. And then you have, I have Ted Ginn Jr. here who's, has a ton of speed, but you could even get away with this with running some of the slower guys. So he goes right around the corner. And then even though the safety, who's, a great athlete, that's the best Landon Collins card, he can't get there in time. Okay, so what I did was I did a bullet throw, forward pass lead, and I waited. It's kind of hard to tell. This is something you kind of have to get a feel for. If you'll see again how long I waited. Something like that. There is some, you don't have to get it right on the money every time. It can be a bit early or a bit late, and you can still get it in there. What's also great about this route, it kind of, it stems. It has like this angle stem. It goes towards the boundary there. So not only is he not getting slowed down at the line of scrimmage, he's gaining space by going outside. So one last time. Yep. So, I thought I could just get away with not pressing the rack button. Yeah, so you see what happens if you go too early. If you go too early, he can undercut. It's not that he gets there, he just kind of undercuts it. But if you go perfect, you can get it just like that. So that in itself, the only way that you can counteract that is by just getting out of cover 2 or manually moving the safety. Which, by the way, opens up things in the middle. So if you want to run a draw or anything like that, you have, the safeties even further away. Or if we want to run things, in the intermediate middle there, we have even more room there. But we won't touch over that. But that's really the only way that you can stop that is by manually moving that safety. So what's also great about this outside release is that it opens up the area underneath the cornerback's cloud. So, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but that cornerback is going to sink further, another extra 5 yards or so to give that safety some more time. We know that he doesn't. We can bomb him over the top. But what that does is it allows the slot receiver here, Shannon Sharp, to get a 10-yard out route underneath him. And this works better to the boundary. So it'll work something like this. Okay, what I usually like to run this, I like to throw it right before he makes his cut. And sometimes you can get around Night Train there. Also works to the far side of the field. I mean, generally you're going to want to align your trips to the far side of the field because you want that one play touchdown. So that's really an easy pitch and catch every single time. And the only way to counteract that is if they do hard flat. But if they do a hard flat, it just gives you more room above here. Okay, so if, again, you're hitting them with those one-play touchdowns, they start to move that safety out there, well, you still have a great option here. You could run this pitch and catch every single time. Unless the user starts to get out there, but then that just opens up things right in the middle. So you see already how these routes are great. Not only are they great in themselves for the one-play touchdowns, but they also open up things underneath. Okay, so you also have, like I mentioned, you have this outside release in a lot of the other plays. You have it in this one, the single back spread 61x choice. But there's also some other really cool stuff in here. So this will be the second play I cover here. I'm only going to cover 3, and all of them are going to be kind of focused on the cover 2. The next video I do is going to be geared towards the cover 3 and cover 4. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. But let's go with the 61x choice. And we'll go up against, again, the cover 2. I like to run this option route here to Ted Ginn Jr. on the left. I like to run him to the field. So you have on the right here the forced outside release. So we know what we can do with that, right? Free 10 yards every single time, or if they're aggressive, we can hit them over the top. So that's great against cover 2. We also know that with cover 2, that if we have a 1x4 look, so if we have one receiver on one side and everybody else on the other side, that the isolated cornerback will convert to man-to-man coverage on that isolated wide receiver. So usually what I have taught you guys to do, or you may have known already, is that to just run this, the 10-yard out, which will get you free 10 yards, easy, or something like where you have a slant and then you put a strong side halfback to a swing in his side and he's wide open. Another thing you can do is just fade your wide receiver. The reason why it'll work is that the cornerback, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but he does a trail technique because, he knows he has help over the top. So either it's buggy because it is, I'll show you, or he means to have that trail technique because he thinks the safety can make it over there, but he actually can't. So what'll happen is, okay, we have this motion. We don't need the auto motion. We can just do it ourselves. But anyway, what we need to know is if we want to do this in single back, we got to make sure to swing Gurley to the right side here. If we do it to the left, the cornerback's not going to match. Okay. And by the way, this option route here to Ted Ginn, against cover 2, he'll always do the fade. So let's show that. Okay, so it's a matter of, it's actually a bullet throw that you want to throw. Okay. So, yeah, I didn't run this one in a while, but you do not want to lob it. It needs to be a bullet throw, and it needs to have a forward pass lead. Okay, so you're going to burn right by the corner, and you're just going to hold the rat catch. What I find is that with holding the rat catch, and also especially with that bullet throw, you're less likely to have that animation where he goes and jumps and grabs the ball when he really doesn't need to, and then he gets tackled. So just like this. By the way, this free safety here is the new Barry Church, who's, you know, a really good card, but he's a bit on the slower end. I think he has 87 or 88 speed. So this will be even tighter against somebody like Sean Taylor. Though it is possible, but that's something in general I want to comment on, is that if you are going to do this, I would definitely suggest scoping your opponent's safeties. So whether you want to pause and look at their depth chart or just, you know, notice it in the game, whatever you want to do. And then from there, you know, run this to the side that has the slower safety. So, but yeah, once you can get this down, you can do it over and over again. So yeah, my issue was doing the lob, but you want to bullet pass it. Not only do you want to do that, you want to be able to wait a bit. Okay, I did it way too early there. Just like that. So you get good at it, you do it every single time. Okay, so you have two options there. You have the 4 verticals. You can bomb them with the, you know, with the trips look. And in this case, you can bomb them with, and you know, it actually doesn't need to be this play. As long as it's 1x4, you know, you can use a fade route. It doesn't need to be this silly option here. So you can do this out of any play. So, you know, technically you don't even need the run and shoot for this. But what's great is that you have a lot of other options. So here you have, I showed you already, you know, you have the outside release on the right, and you can throw underneath him. You have the left here where you can bomb it for a 1-play touchdown. And then in the middle, you also have some interesting options. So, you know, what you'll see is something like this, the Tampa 2 look. From there, you can smart route this sharp to just get a bit of depth on his route to get, you know, more spacing here. And then you're just running a high-low read. Okay, you can go immediately here, pick up a few yards. You know, you could start to do that a lot. So let's show that again. And then once your user, say, you know, this guy, or if it's this guy, so let's pretend it's him. He starts to key on that. Well, you have X over the top there. So you have options to the right, you have options to the left, and you have some really good options in the middle against cover 2. Let's show it again. Let's go this time. Yeah, I mean, we showed them both. And you don't need to use the auto motion there. You can motion it yourself, and you can run a slant, which will probably be better. What I like about this a lot is that there are certain cases where your opponent might forget to put that middle linebacker in a deep zone, or he's somebody that doesn't do that. You know, he might be somebody that uses this middle linebacker himself. What's interesting here is that depending on what the middle zone is here, if it's a mid-read or a deep third, this Shannon Sharp option route is going to do something different. So these option routes aren't necessarily okay, on cover 2 I'm going to do this, or cover 3 I'm going to do this. Sometimes it has to do with what individual coverages are going on. So if he sees a deep third, which is what I just showed you, he knows that a post isn't going to do anything there. So he cuts it off for a 15-yard in route. But if he sees this mid read, which kind of goes this depth and stops, he's going to run the post. So let's look at that. So you see you have the post here, and you have that touchdown. Well, if he's Antonio Brown or Ted Ginn, you probably have a touchdown there. Show that again. So I found that, really interesting that those option routes, can kind of work into the meta of Madden 18 a bit, where depending on what your opponent will put that, the middle linebacker's assignment as, that option route is going to do something a bit different. And he's going to pick actually the best one for each case. So, this is really where the run and shoot can start to shine here. So if you want to explore this playbook a bit more, work in a bit more of these option routes, if it works better against, against hard flats or cloud flats or deep zones or vert hooks or curl flats or whatever. So this is just one case, but there's got to be so many more if you just look into it a bit. So yeah, we showed you that. So cover 2, again, you have the left, the right, the area right, shallow in the middle, and you got intermediate in the middle, and you got deep in the middle. So you can really attack it, like I was saying, in every corner of the field. So what I also like about this is that, first of all, this option route to Ted Ginn Jr., if he's coming up against cover 3 or cover 4, he's going to do that out route. So in this case, this is, 13-yard out route. So if we just convert here to cover 3, you'll have that out route. Let's go up against something that's a bit more, that doesn't kind of glitch out so much. So we'll just go 4-6. And 61x choice. Okay, so you have that out route. What I like is that, actually, in order to, the best way to show this is going back to the cover 2. 61x choice. And let's go temp 2. So this will depend on which formation your opponent is, but if we motion this slot receiver across, that outside linebacker that's covering him, or, he might be a nickel cornerback or whatever, he's going to motion, he's not going to go all the way across like he would for man coverage. But if we motion, depending on what coverage he's in, he'll go to a different spot. So his base alignment for cover 2 is in this spot right here, right above the 3 technique. So you see him right there, right above the 3 technique. So now if we go to, say, cover 4, and we motion him, let's see where he stops. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. He's right up, behind that defensive end. So that's a pretty huge tell right there. So, I mean, the cornerback alignment or the safety alignment might be enough for us. But in certain cases where you're coming up against somebody that's switching between cover 2 and cover 4, this can be extremely helpful. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to be the same thing, or every time the cover 2, the cover 2 defender is going to go inside above the 3 tech, and the cover 4 guy will go right behind the defensive end. It'll change between formation and formation, And, if you're serious about, getting good at this, you'll look into those. But, that's just another tool that we can use. And again, that's, similar to what you want out of, the run and shoot. That motion will, help us open up the defense a bit in terms of some of the route spacings, but it also can tell us a bit about what it is. So it brings that slot defender inside, and then we have room outside for the 13-yard out. So yeah, the 61X choice is really good, really great. Ton of options against cover 2, and if it turns out to be cover 3 or cover 4, we have, that's just one of the many options we can have. But I'm not going to go into it too much because, the next video is more so for cover 3 and cover 4. What I want to do is just end with cover 1 press. You're starting to see little bits of this here and there with better players. They'll be running cover 2 all game, and then they'll mix in cover 1 press, and you'll be, what happened? So cover 1 rubber press. But what's great about this is that both of these outside routes, the Carmichael and the Ted Ginn, they both win every single time. So Carmichael here is going to get an outside release, and he's just going to blow right by Night Train lane. This will happen every single time, and then, as long as he's not significantly slower than Night Train, he's going to win that battle. The route on the left is even better. So just that, that glitchy option route, he wins every single time. So just like that. So if you're coming up against somebody that's kind of mixing in the cover 1, cover 3, you can do that, and then you also have this motion. So because it's 4-3, that linebacker won't carry all the way across, but if you're coming up against nickel, if you motion Antonio Brown across, that nickel corner is going to follow him. But regardless, if you see that jam, you should be able to win every time. The reason why I say that is, the cover 1 press is sometimes you actually don't win. So if I just do a streak here, you see they're kind of neck and neck. Now Ted Ginn's just really fast, and 50 yards down the field, he's able to get some separation. But if we do the battle on the right, that time we won. That was good. That time we didn't win. In the end, he ended up getting some separation, but that was actually a nice jam. He stopped him for quite a few yards. So there, it's kind of neck and neck. So yeah, I like these routes because it gets you the win every single time. And then if you're in single back, if you're doing that motion there, this motion halfback draw is nice. I think in general draws are going to be great because, again, you're stretching that field vertically and horizontally. Your opponent's expecting pass 70-80% of the time, and then you're just going to throw in that draw play and get a ton of yards. The final thing I want to go and cover 2 before we wrap up is out of the pistol spread, this fade smash. This is a really effective route here from Ted Ginn Jr. Why I like it is against 4-3 and 3-4, those linebackers will not get a jam on him, and he'll get a free release in that sweet spot between the cornerback and the safety. If it's a nickel, he will get jammed. So, it's not going to work great against nickel unless you run it to the opposite side. Okay, so if you know that your opponent usually runs their nickel to the left, you'll want to run this to the right and so on. But what it'll look like, so what you'll want to do is just slant that receiver there beside him, just to occupy that cloud flat a bit. And then you'll have free yards every single time. So it's a matter of, if you want to be safe, you'll do a more of an outside pass lead, like I did there. Although there are situations where you do too much outside and it becomes dangerous because the cornerback gets there. Okay, so something like that. Or if you want to, gain a few more yards, you'll do something more of a forward pass lead, like 10 o'clock or something like that. So that's another way to, expose that cloud flat. Unfortunately, you can't really do the one-play touchdown thing, but... Oh, yeah, you see, if you don't do the slant, the cornerback can get involved there. And yeah, again, really the only thing you can do there is, on the defense side, is just hope for a bad throw or move your safety out there manually, which again opens up things in the middle. Okay, so that is cover 2. We showed you a few ways to bomb it and a few ways to get significant yardage against it. Next video, I'm going to show you some nice one-play touchdowns against cover 3 and cover 4, and really starting to get the ball moving on this playbook. Okay, so I hope you find this useful. Take it to the practice field, take it to online head-to-head, start winning some games. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe in order to, get that cover 3 and cover 4 right away. Okay, we'll see you in the next one.